Agrulius platypinus, known colloquially as the emerald ash borer, is an invasive species of green beetle that's wreaked havoc on the North American ash tree. The emerald ash borer has 4 distinct stages of life: larva, egg, pupa, and adult span, and they generally live about 2 years. They're a native of Asia, and they're metallic green and bullet-shaped. They measure approximately 8.5 meters in length by 1.6 meters in width, and they're realistically about the size of a grain of cooked rice. Mature ash borers live about 3 to 6 weeks, and although a fully mature emerald ash borer does feed lightly on the foliage of ash trees, they don't cause much harm. However, the larvae cause a great deal of destruction in the ash tree population. Emerald ash borer eggs are very small and are very difficult to detect, so they very rarely signal the beginning of an infestation. When the larvae hatch from their eggs, they're generally deposited within the ash bark, and they're small white creatures that instantly chew tunnels into the tree. These extensive catacombs are then used to feed the phylum and the outer sapwood through the summer and fall. Ultimately, this kills the ash tree as it blocks the flow of water and other nutrients from the roots to the canopy of the tree, and this is generally heralded by leaves and foliage thinning and a huge loss of branches. Generally, the ash tree dies within 2 to 4 years of infestation. The emerald ash borer is presumed to have originally arrived on this continent in Michigan in about June of 2002 as an ecological stowaway in some wood packing materials from China. Unfortunately, because of illegal and improper forestry practices, the bug can now be found across the U.S. in states Connecticut, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Maryland, Massachusetts, and Michigan, as well as Minnesota, Missouri, New Hampshire, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wisconsin, as well as Canada in the north. The infestation has killed a huge amount of ash trees native to North America of the Fraxinus genus. Nearly 100 species similar to Agrulius or the emerald ash borer are native to North America. However, none of the indigenous insects are known to attack ash trees. Once an infestation is begun, the bug can decimate and entirely wipe out ash populations within 11 years in a largely populated area. Much like a biblical plague, these bugs propagate exponentially, and an average female laying roughly 100 eggs over the course of 2 months increases the population by 5,000% annually. That means that the single female insect will produce a population of over 50 trillion emerald ash borers within 10 years. The infestation has an incalculable impact on both economic and ecological terms. Fiscally, this huge die-out of North American ash trees represents a significant loss of property values, which are often associated with tree life, and the valuable resource of ash for lumber and building materials. This is compounded by the price that cities and homeowners pay to have the dying and potentially hazardous trees removed. However, the undiscovered costs are the ecological impacts of disappearing ash trees, and this impact will probably be more far-reaching and certainly more profound. The massive loss of ash trees will likely greatly disturb the ecosystems and biodiversity of our forests, and will remove an essential form of food and shelter for animals that may not be available elsewhere. This will potentially have great impact on the numerous birds, insects, and animals that are currently living and depending on ash in our forests. However, we're unable to predict at the moment exactly what the environmental effects will be, and studies are currently underway to give us an idea of how to cure this, what kind of problem these creatures will cause. There are a variety of possible solutions to the emerald ash borer incursion, and they vary greatly in success, cost, and feasibility. In order to combat the spread, several government organizations like the USDA Forest Service, the USDA Animal and Plant Inspection Service, Most conservation departments of the individual states and the Canadian Food Inspection Agency have imposed strict quarantine zones and stiff regulations barring the transport of ash plants. However, this is still a major problem as the emerald ash borer spreads exponentially through a forest population. Of the solutions available, chemical insecticides are prominent and generally the only viable option. Of the chemically based methods, the first and most invasive method is imacticin benzoate, which is also marketed under the name of triage. This chemical is injected directly into the ash by a number of holes drilled in the trunk. After injection, the holes are plugged and the tree slowly absorbs the solution over time. Eradication in this case takes approximately an hour per tree and is the most effective technique, killing the emerald ash borer in all growth stages. It also has the greatest longevity. Trees must only be treated with this solution every 2 years. However, the effectiveness comes at a considerable cost. Imacticin benzoate is the least affordable option, due in part to its restricted nature, which requires it to be applied by professionals. Additionally, years of repeated treatment are terrible for the health of the ash tree, along with their repeated drilling and toxic chemicals. Another chemical option, imidacloprid, which is an active ingredient contained in a number of readily available products, is generally injected in the earth around the ash in a 1-foot radius, approximately 3 to 4 inches down, and or is released around the tree to form a moat. This is generally the cheapest and most cost-effective method of emerald ash borer treatment, and trees can generally be treated for about $20 a tree. It's very popular with homeowners as it can be applied privately and does not wound or damage the tree. However, trees must be treated annually and the solution can't be employed within 10 feet of any water source. Finally, imidacloprid takes up to 60 days to be absorbed into the ash in sufficient quantities for emerald ash borer extermination. The final insecticide option, dinotufuran, commonly known as Transect or Safari, imidacloprid. Like imidacloprid, dinotufuran is applied to the soil surrounding the tree, usually by an injector. However, dinotufuran is highly soluble and it may be applied to the trunk directly as a spray. Dinotufuran becomes approximately effective 3 times faster than imidacloprid, and because of this, it can be used later both in the season of the year and the stage of emerald ash borer infestation. This has been the emerald ash borer infestation, and I am Wilby Alley. Thanks for